Good evening, everyone. My name is Mr. Knight. I'm an English teacher, and I'm here to talk to you tonight about one particular revision top tip that will really help students recall and retain key information when it comes to revising for their GCSE exams. Before we actually look at this technique, we thought about why it was important to actually use a variety of different methods and show students the best way in which you could revise. Because we asked students, how do you revise currently? And students gave a number of responses, and they included making notes from workbooks, their rereading, revision guides, and watching YouTube videos, all of which are absolutely fine in terms of learning knowledge and getting new knowledge. But how do we retain information that we've already learned? How do we actually get that information out of our heads onto a piece of paper? How do we remember in these stressful and pressurized situations? So one thing that we thought about was actually, as teachers, we do impart knowledge into students' heads. How do the students then best get that information back onto a piece of paper? How do they sort of recall that information and retain it from their head? So it's called dual coding. Now, this might sound like some very fancy IT procedure, but actually, it's very simple. Dual coding involves using images and pictures to represent key things that have been learned into particular subjects. So these could be formulas, they could be keywords, they could be quotations, or they could be key themes for particular texts that they've studied. So using memorable images to represent words and numbers from various subjects, if you're creating these images in your book, um, they can be personalized, they can be individual to you as well. So if you get into your exam and you're thinking about, oh, what does this particular quotation or what is this particular theme, then you can remember those images and they will really sort of stand out to you when you're recalling that information. These images as well, they represent almost words for you and they represent ideas. So instead of having an idea in your head, you would have a picture of an image, and that would automatically bring back those particular complex and sophisticated ideas. Even more challenging is you could have someone actually test you with these particular images. Now, let's have a look at some of these in action. So, in terms of dual coding, what I have done as an English teacher is we've used dual coding to look at the actual plot of a text that we've been studying for English literature. Now, all students have to study A Christmas Carol for their GCSE exams. And this student has actually plotted out the whole of the first chapter, the whole of the first stave using images. So as you can see, they are numbered 1 through to 28, and each different picture will represent a key event from that stave. So they have used almost a timeline feature and images to help them remember that stave. So they could look at particularly number 2, and they could see that actually Scrooge and Marley owned a business, and Scrooge was too tight to even paint over his partner's name once he had died. Okay, so I can tell from that image what is happening in that key event in the plot. Another way of using these images is to think about key themes. Okay, so for each particular literature text in English, students will be asked to sort of understand some key themes which run throughout the entire text. Now, for example, these pictures on the board then will link to a key theme within A Christmas Carol, and it would be up to students to identify these key themes and help them remember them. Another way of doing it is for using it for key quotations. So using a particular image or picture to represent a quote. Now, quotes are really difficult to learn in English. So students, by using particular images, they maybe just give them that memory and give them that flashback of that particular quotation. So, for example, that lovely little picture there of the schoolboy, which represents as merry as a schoolboy, representing Scrooge in stave 5 of A Christmas Carol. So dual coding is similar to something that we've used in the past in English, which is just text mapping, where you'd use particular images to represent words, and that's been really effective. It's important, though, to consider that dual coding is not just used in English. It can be used in a number of other subjects, such as history, such as maths, geography, and it can be used in a wide range of subjects across school. So using these images, how can students at home go about using these images to really help retrieve information effectively from their heads? Thank you for taking the time out to listen, and please have a go at using these techniques at home because they will help students retrieve information effectively.